Hi there, how's it going? Well, after the complete and utter debacle that was the SWS video, I thought that this week we'd do something a little different. As I had said, I made negative progress after borking the Ultra One's power supply after the video ended, and the Ultra 2, which is bad ID prommed and refusing to boot. I've had a bunch of offers for help, which is fantastic, and a chap by the name of Alex, who goes by Triadic Tech on YouTube, was very kind and sent me a pre-programmed ID prom, which I have in my hot little hands but have not plugged in as yet. So we will come back around to the SWS and revisit that in a wee bit. I also made contact with a fellow by the name of Andras, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who has made a Cray X-MP emulator. So not an FPGA emulator, but in, I believe, C, in software at least, that you can run on your PC. And he worked with the dude that got the CDC 9762 disk pack image of an XMP boot disk. And he has an emulator that will boot into COS, which is really cool, and he has offered to help me figure out my param file and any kind of disk foraging through the systems and things like that, which is so beyond awesome. If you want to run your own Cray, I'm going to include the link in the description, so go find that and you can download his software. He is the man. For this week, I thought that we would work on chasing up cabling. But we're going to do something a little different, so bear with me. So I've been hiding behind the camera for 6 years now, and a lot of the time that's, that's fine. For some of the long shots it's kind of a pain in the butt, and as somebody told me, the talking hand of history got a little boring, so here I am. Not much, I'm afraid. But if you find that you have to keep going, we can reverse this decision at a future date. Anyways, so today I'd like to try and figure out how to chase up these cables. I have 6 disk boxes. The VME backplane here, cable chain, cable chase, cables. And to begin with, I'd like to figure out which SCSI cables go to which disk boxes. And I've started disassembling it a little more. You can see one of the back bulkheads I've propped down here so that I can get down to these lower disk boxes. The cables, well, it turns out they're labeled. After I took things apart and took a closer look, I went, that's fantastic. So we'll start with this cable here. This is the one that's been removed for this big monster here that's been wired up manually to one of the disk boxes. There's a white label, and the label says B7. And B7 is the backplane spot that it plugs into on the back of the VME chassis. This is great. It'll show me which cable goes to which end. That's fantastic. And so I started hunting. I unplugged one of the disk boxes, and instead of saying B7 or B9 or whatever, it says U22 J2. Well, it turns out U22 is rack unit 22, and it specifies where the disk box is in the rack, and J2 is the second connector, J1 and J2. So from the factory you could be handed a pile of cables with a pile of stickers and be able to figure out how to wire your Cray. Does me no good, because I still have no idea which end in here goes to which end up there. So we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. And there are 2 readily obvious options here. The first is I could roll this thing out open up the cable chase, open up the cable chain, and start mapping cables, running it physically from one end to the other. And I did figure out how the chase works. If we roll the chassis forward a bit. So we have our cable chain here, and the cable chase, where the cables come flooding back out. This is just a 1U unit, and there's a couple screws in the front, and so you undo the screws, and this top here slides clean forwards, and it gives you complete access to the chase. The cable chain, the links pop apart, and it gives you access to it. Now I could do that, but it would mean that I would have to single out a single cable, run it from front to back, and then pack it back into the chase or the chain, and then go to the next one. And I think that's going to suck eggs, because I highly doubt I'm going to pack it in there as well as the guy that did it professionally before me. I don't really want to do that. I don't want to mess with that. That looks like it's fraught with losing. So, the other possibility is to do it electrically. And I think that's the way I'm going to go. It's going to be time consuming, because I'm going to have to get to all of the SCSI cable ends on the disk boxes up and down. But it is going to be a heck of a lot easier, in as much as I can unplug it and then I can just plug it straight back in once I've identified it. And to help me with that, I'm going to use my VOM, a spare SCSI cable, paper, pencil, and this little wire here. And it works kind of like this. This cable came from a Sun Spark Array disc array. Spark Array disc array? Yeah. And I have about 14 of them, which is really handy. And at either end they have female 68 pin SCSI headers. In the middle they have male 50 pin, so it's doing conversion, which is really handy. They're great cables to have. And like I say, I have a whole bunch of them, which is nice. The voltage meter I'm going to run in continuity mode, as long as my probes last, which is entirely obvious, but I've done some arc welding with them once before. And then we have our paper, so I can say B1, B2, B3, and which disk box and port it goes to, U22, J2, U24, J1, whatever. And then the wire, which is going to work like this. I'll take one of the uppers, shove that puppy in there. SCSI cable, much like the ones on the disc boxes, although this one is from an E10000. So we'll connect it to the other end like this. Imagine this cable, this end is at the VME backplane end, and this end is at the disc box end. So we'll unhook it from the VME backplane, or the bulkhead, plug her in there, and if I have the right ends, I should get tone. Oops. I may have to put a weight on this to stop it escaping from me. Let's try that again. Aha. Is it agricultural? Yeah. But it should work just fine. The cable's nice and long, so I can have it sitting out of the way. If that probe's on that end, I should have a nice long reach with this probe so I can get up and into the rack. So I'll hook it up to the first back plane, and then I'll start disconnecting SCSI cables, and I'll go through, and as I find it, I'll mark it down on my paper, plug it back in, and of course as I'm running through and I'm getting more and more knocked off, that's less that's left, so it's not like I'm going to be going back over the same ground, and it should speed up as I go through. Cack-handed, but functional, and it saves me unhooking that friggin' cable chase and making a complete catastrophe mess that I can't fix. So we have row upon row of SCSI cables here. We've got our first row here with the FDDI, and then there is a second and third row interspersed with Y1 cables and some DB9s, and also the Ethernet, the 10B2s down here as well. And it's a bit of a pain to see, a bit of a pain to get to, but not too bad. I also have noted that this Y1 cable here, along with the SCSI cable, has been manually routed. I went and wrote down all of the port numbers. There are 29 of them, although some of them are blanked off like this. And Y1 cable that goes to B29 is this bad boy here, and it's not connected to anything. So somebody's done something to presumably attempt to get it to start with half of it disconnected. So we'll start with undoing all of these bloody SCSI cables. And I think I'll start with the ones on the top. I'm going to abandon this manually routed one because I know where that one is, and then we'll work our way down from there. And in theory, nope, missed one. There it goes. And we'll take this guy and tuck it out of the way. And then on to the second layer. You know, it's just occurred to me, as I am 4/5 of the way through this, if these things are wired up in some kind of sensible manner, where, shall we say, B2 goes to the top disk box J1, and B3 goes to the top disk box J2, and the next one J1, and the next one J2, and so on down, I've just undone a whole bunch of crap that I didn't need to. So before I go any further into making a mess, I think I'm going to start tracing some of these and see where we get. So while I'm here, I've just discovered, you'd think I would have noticed it before, there's another arm. And another set of SCSI cables. Somebody's half-inched one of these disk boxes. There was one more on top of here. And I kind of figured there must have been because there's a gap in the front paneling, but I'd missed the arm. So I know for sure we have at least 2 additional cables that are going nowhere because the box is missing. Anyways, I've taken all the Y1 cables that are spare and the manually routed SCSI cable, and I've thrown it up to get it out of the way. And we're going to ignore this bad boy here because these SCSI cables go to a box that no longer exists. And this box up here is U25, J4 and J, 2. So I was wrong. It's not J1 and J2. J2 and J4. We have our high-tech testing apparatus. And we'll start with B3. Where's our cable in? There it goes. Like this. And then, well, I suppose we should start at the top, the ones that I've disconnected, shouldn't we? Perhaps not. How about the next guy? This is going to be a long time, isn't it? Aha! So B3 goes to U25J2, which is this right-hand one here. Let's make a note. U25J2. Well, does that mean B4 goes to J4? If it really is that easy, I've done a whole lot of unplugging for nothing. Let's get our probe. Where's J4? Over here. Alrighty then, U25J4. Now it can't be that easy, because if it was, B3 and B4 would be this top shelf that's missing. So if they're in pairs, that's convenient. At least then there won't be too much guessing and searching all over creation. The next one on the bulkhead should go to the next one on the disk box. But I might have to work my way through to figure out which disk box each pair goes to. U10J2. Got a fair guess as to why the B7 cable here has been manually routed. Some cretin snapped the pin off inside the cable. Wow, that was time consuming. I thought I would spare you the copious amount of time involved in continuing to trace all of the cables. I finished tracing the SCSI cables on the back. I also traced all of the other cables in here, so the Ethernet, things like that. And then I did these guys here and figured from the bulkhead to the cards as well, and then I mapped the cards too. The SCSI cables go to SCSI cards. Each card has 2 ports, so all of that adds up as well, obviously. And I have a mapping of which bulkhead goes to which SCSI card, I've also figured out that the two coax headers on the back, the 10B2s, are both part of the same loop. This is for the system Ethernet, which connects to the iOSs. This guy over here is the local Ethernet, which goes to the Ethernet driver in Unicos, so that goes to an AUI on the back. There is a DB9, which is buried down in here, that goes to the power sequencer bar, and that actually goes into the power supply in this guy here. So I have my map of SCSI disk boxes to bulkheads. I've got my map of which card goes in which slot in the backplane, and then I have my map of which of the bulkhead ports goes to which cards. So we've got that sorted. That's nice. There were two manually routed cables that I spotted yesterday. There was the Y1 and there was the SCSI. So as I mentioned, the SCSI, one of the pins was snapped off one of the routed SCSI cables. So at this point in time, I'm beginning to lean towards suspecting that instead of somebody manually routing it to be able to jerry-rig the system into coming up in a limited fashion, they're probably replacements for bad cables. I figure that, surprise, they didn't want to have to unpack and repack the damn cable chase and chain either. And so they're just hanging out there like that. So, 4 Y1 cards, 4 Y1 ports, 4 Y1 cables, and 1 bad cable. Everything adds up. Now, there are 6 ports on the back of the mainframe. It is possible it doesn't actually matter where any of these things plug in. As we saw a couple of weeks ago, the CPU board has the CPU module has a mezzanine board that the Y1 connects to. It's possible that is just bridging it straight to the bus controller ASICs, which then put it on the main bus. The IOPs and the BB64s write DMA directly into the mainframe's memory. If that's what's happening, it's probably not paged. Maybe it is. And so it might mean that it can plug anywhere and it'll work just fine. It'll access the system bus on the mainframe and find the appropriate RAM block. And I think I'm going to call it good there. The next thing that I'm going to try and do is some disk imaging. There are 24 disks. It occurs to me as well that maybe the shelf that's missing contained the boot code. So, if that was intentionally taken, maybe not. I will system image the disks. I've actually pulled one of the disks out already. That's what I'm looking at over there. So as somebody pointed out, WD is Y differential SCSI, which was the Seagate model number. I believe that's HVD, high voltage differential. Probably. With the age of the machine, that's likely. I don't know if I've got an HVD controller. So, and I've got a bunch of LVD. I don't know if I've got any HVD. So that might be problematic. So I'm going to have to start hunting through my parts store. I am pretty sure I have an HVD to LVD adapter board. A pretty decent sized board somewhere. So that might be my saving grace. We'll find out. Anyways, if you have been, thank you so very much for watching. I appreciate all of the comments, all of the help. I forgot to mention earlier that my buddy Jim has offered me a SparkStation 5. He has a bunch. So if I can't get the Ultra 2 working, or another Ultra, or a different SparkStation, or whatever the hell I find, there's always a possibility there, so that's great news. And, well, thank you very much. I'll catch you next time.